In the world of depth psychology, Karen Horney stood out for offering a unique and profoundly human perspective on the inner conflicts we carry from childhood. One of her most valuable contributions was the concept of the idealized self, a mental construct we develop to compensate for our deepest insecurities. In simple terms, it is a false self-image we create to feel worthy, when in reality, it stems from the fear of not being enough. Horney believed that many people do not feel valuable simply for being who they are, but learn to see themselves as worthy only when they conform to an image of perfection. This image is not real. It is a mask, an armor, a desperate attempt to protect ourselves from the pain of feeling inadequate. According to her theory of neurotic development, the need to create a false self begins in childhood, when a child does not feel unconditionally loved. Rather than feeling accepted for who they are, the child begins to adapt in order to please, becoming the good one, the strong one, the perfect one, or the successful one, depending on their environment. This is how the idealized self begins to form, replacing the authentic self. This idealized image is not a healthy aspiration. It becomes an internal dictator, demanding perfection, rejecting vulnerability, and generating constant anxiety. Because one cannot simply live, one must constantly prove they are worthy of love. For Horney, the neurotic conflict arises from the gap between the real self, imperfect, sensitive, human, and the idealized self, perfect, strong, untouchable. The greater the distance between the two, the more intense the emotional suffering. Many people live trapped in this false self without realizing it. They believe that if they can meet certain standards, being successful, likable, attractive, flawless, then they will finally be worthy. But it is never enough. Because the issue is not reality itself, but the internal image they compare themselves to. Horney identified several ways in which this false self manifests. One of the most common is the compulsive drive to achieve. This is not healthy ambition, but a need to prove one's right to exist. Every achievement becomes a way to temporarily calm an inner insecurity. At the same time, any mistake, rejection, or sign of weakness is experienced as a personal threat. Another symptom of the false self is the need to please others. Many people shape their personality to gain approval and distance themselves from their true desires for fear of rejection. Horney saw this as a form of alienation. The more one adapts to the persona, the further they drift from their authentic self. There is also the case of those who isolate emotionally, striving to appear self-sufficient, strong, and independent, as if they need nothing from anyone. Deep down, this attitude may hide a deep distrust of relationships, born from the fear of being hurt or showing weakness. These patterns of living from the false self all have something in common, a constant struggle to be someone other than who one truly is, an inner tension that drains energy, undermines self-esteem, and creates a chronic sense of emptiness. Horney not only described this phenomenon, but also offered guidance on how to begin healing. The key, she said, is to stop idealizing oneself, to dare to look at the real self with acceptance, even if it means acknowledging limitations, wounds, or insecurities. Only by letting go of the fantasy of perfection can genuine self-esteem begin to emerge. Accepting the real self does not mean giving up, but rather starting to live from a more honest place. It means being able to say, I am not perfect, but I exist, I matter, and I have the right to be myself. This step involves releasing constant self-judgment and embracing a more compassionate outlook. It takes time, effort, and often therapeutic support. One important concept Horney introduced was self-understanding. This is not about endlessly analyzing oneself, but about observing with openness, without guilt or fear. It is about seeing the mechanisms of the false self clearly, without judging oneself for having developed them, understanding that these were survival strategies in an environment that, in some way, failed to offer emotional security. From this understanding, it becomes possible to gradually dismantle the false self, not through force, but with gentleness, asking questions like, am I doing this because I genuinely want to, or because I feel I have something to prove? Or, is this image I present truly mine, or is it built for others to approve of me? These reflections help to reconnect with one's authentic self. Another key step, according to Horney, is to allow vulnerability. The false self is sustained by a mask of strength, but opening up to vulnerability is what enables real connections and meaningful experiences, accepting that we need others, that we are sometimes afraid, that we do not always know what to do. This is part of reconnecting with ourselves. Finally, Horney spoke of the importance of rebuilding a self-image grounded in reality, not fantasy. This means recognizing both strengths and limitations without distortion. Being able to say, these are my abilities, these are my challenges, and I accept myself as I am. We live in a culture that reinforces the false self, demanding success, beauty, performance, and visibility. But the price of maintaining that idealized image is inner disconnection. That is why the path to a fuller life involves releasing that image and beginning to live from the core, not the mask. Karen Horney's theory invites us to a deep and courageous process to stop being who we think we should be and start becoming who we truly are. It is not an easy path, but it is the only one that leads to a genuine sense of worth, because self-worth is not born from the persona we show, but from the courage to be authentic. And in that simple yet powerful act, true freedom begins. At Brighter Self, we continue to share ideas that help you discover who you truly are, because only by knowing yourself can you begin to live from your center and not from the image you once built to survive.